All praises. Shalom, y'all. Man, I'm happy to see y'all. Y'all know, running around like a chicken without a head. Late. But we here though. Yeah, all praises. So today we're gonna pick up where we left off last week. Like I said, last week we looked at whole overview of the two ways being set before mankind. Today we're gonna dig more into oneness itself. Hey, Zach Kane, can you like bump my volume down just a tad bit, because I'm barely projecting and I'm coming loud. Toda. All right, so oneness of self, part 2. Yeah, we're gonna pick back up where we left off. Disclaimer. Scriptures expressed in this study are those of the author and not my own. Viewer discretion is advised. Guidelines for the lesson. We want all things to be done with decency and order. These lessons are intended to be interactive. So I'm gonna repeat, these lessons are intended to be interactive. Today, I'm gonna be looking for a little bit of interaction, all right? Please ask all questions, make statements in the microphone so that everybody can hear you. We wanna be mindful of the time, so please limit responses to roughly 60 seconds or less. This will give others an opportunity to ask questions and give input. We want to stay on topic. If you have questions that do not pertain to the topic of the lesson, please hold those until after the study. This will help us better serve your question and give it the proper attention it deserves. And if we move on from a point and you don't get a chance to ask your question and make your statement, if by the end of the study it still hasn't been addressed, please hold this till the end of the study and then we can come back and revisit it. All right, so Hebrews 4:11. Let us therefore do our utmost to enter into that rest, lest anyone fall after the same example of disobedience. So, I mean, in essence, y'all know that's up there every time y'all see me. The goal is we can learn how to navigate life so that we don't walk into that same example, right? Like, if it was so easy, they would have all went into the promised land, right? So something happened when it was in that wilderness that brought out a whole bunch of stuff that kept them from entering in, right? So that's the last thing that we want. That's why we're going over this. Verse 12, it says, "For the word of Elohim is living and working and sharper than any two-edged sword, cutting through even to the dividing of being and spirit and of joints and marrow, and able to judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart. And there is no creature hidden from his sight, but all are naked and laid bare before the eyes of him with whom is our account." So we already know he knows us. The goal is that we get to know us so that we can get where he wants us to be. Because if we don't, we're going to be just like those ones in the wilderness trying to get into a place that we locked out of, right? So these lessons are not directed at any one person or group, but are intended to be edifying and useful to all who have joined themselves to the covenant of Yahuwah. So the Father is impartial and none can avoid him, even the person who is tasked with presenting the lesson, which is me, myself. So we are all held to this standard, and none of us are above his ways, corrections, and reproofs. Romans 2:1. "Therefore, O man, you are without excuse, everyone who judges, for in which you judge another, you condemn yourself, since you who judge practice the same wrongs. And we know that the judgment of Elohim is according to truth against those who practice such wrongs. And do you think, O man, you who judge those practicing such wrongs and doing the same, that you shall escape the judgment of Elohim?" And obviously that's rhetorical, right? We all know at the end of the day, it's appointed to all of us once to die in the inner judgment. And how we end up in that determine on how we play it here. So getting to know ourselves. Before we go to the next slide, what can you tell me about the heart? Okay, desperately wicked. What does that mean? There we go. All praises. Desperately wicked, who can know it? It's all right, Akko. You got more to add to that? Because we're going to go there on the next slide anyway. So, okay. Say that again.
It's connected to your mind.
Okay, connected.
One and the same.
Okay, all praises. Very good point. That was one of y'all from somewhere in the middle. Okay. Coming to you after Kim.
It goes really deep, that our heart goes really deep, which is our mind. Our heart is our mind. So the thoughts that we have or things that we don't even know are there, it runs so deep. Only the Most High knows what we have in us. So when we say, oh, I would never do this or this, we don't know that. On the surface, yes. Logically speaking, yes, we won't do certain things, but only the Most High knows that.
Excellent point. Like I said earlier, the wilderness brought a whole lot of stuff up to the surface that they didn't know was there, right? Ebony.
The word says, from the overflow of the heart, your mouth speaks.
All praises.
And also, I think I remember reading that out of it comes like the issues of life.
All praises.
Maybe misquoting that, but
all praises. So we gonna see like the heart is capable of doing a whole lot, right? And so remember, you just said out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So it has the ability to control how you move, other aspects of your life, right?
In Hebrew, I believe it's pronounced lab. It says the heart also used figuratively very widely for the feelings, the will, and even the intellect. Likewise, for the center of anything, care, comfortably, consent, considered, courageous, friendly, on and on. But in Hebrew, H3820 is pronounced lab.
All praises. All praises. We cooking with hot grease. So, Jeremiah 17:9, it was brought up earlier. The heart is deceitful above all things. Not some things, but above all things. And desperately wicked, who can know it? I, Yahuwah, search the heart, I try the mind, even to give every man according to his ways and according to the fruit of his doings. So, right there, that tells you the state of the heart. Proverbs 20:5. Counsel in the heart of a man is like deep water. Y'all brought that out. But a man of understanding will draw it out. Most men will proclaim everyone his own goodness, but a faithful man who can find? You got something up? Okay, all praises. So, what does this tell us about our heart? So what we'll see as we go through this lesson is that the heart does not want to see itself, right? It's deceitful. The last thing that the heart wants to see is itself. Elder?
I was just thinking when you stated that the heart is deceitful, that would mean that there's aspects of your heart that you really don't know. And until you're faced with that adversity, that's when your true nature of your heart is going to be examined. Mm-hmm. Just when you said the heart is deceitful, it's like you might feel one way, but when another thing comes up, you might feel another way.
Completely opposite, right? And then when the other thing pops up, what do we have a tendency of doing? The heart has a way of justifying itself, right? It'll weasel itself around having to deal with the reality that something is not one or in unity within me, right? All praises. So the heart will hide itself from itself and has many ways to see itself as good. So remember, every man is right in his own eyes. So this may not be the case for the eyes outside of himself, right? Because it's easy to see somebody else. It is for you to see yourself, right? You can identify the problems in everybody else, everywhere else, but when it comes to you, that's when it becomes a problem, right? There we go. The heart has many defenses to see itself as good. So this is in part because the Father created us to be good, right? So like part of it is the heart wants to see itself as good because it's trying to hold itself to the standard of the Most High, right? He created us to be good. So part of it is made in a way to where it naturally wants to be good, but it don't always want to do good. And that's where the issue comes in, right? So there was something that was added with the good, an example, evil, that causes the heart to still want to see itself as good, even though it might be mixed with some evil, right? So in order for us to have oneness within self, we have to first identify how we are designed. Within each one of us is a free will and an ability to choose between good and evil. So we know that these two wills war against one another within each person until one learns to master one over the other, right? So this is what we talked about last week, these two ways, right? And both are presented before all of us in equal measure. And it's up to you to use your free will, which path you gonna walk on. You either gonna choose from the good or you gonna choose from the evil, right? Galatians 5:17, for the flesh lusts against the spirit. So the flesh is against the spirit, but both of these are talking about you. And the spirit against the flesh. And these are opposed to each other so that you do not do what you desire to do. So there's something going on within you that, within you, one person, supposed to be one person, these two wills are fighting so that what you want to do, you can't do. Right? Don't make it difficult. So it says 5:18. It says, but if you are led by the Ruach or led by the Spirit, you are not under the Torah. And the works of the flesh are well known, which are these: adultery, whoring, uncleanness, indecency, idolatry, drug sorcery, hatred, quarrels, jealousies, fits of rage, selfish ambitions, dissensions, factions, envy, murders, drunkenness, wild parties, and the like, of which I forewarn you, even as I also said before, that those who practice such as these shall not enter the reign or the kingdom of Elohim. So now here's the question. When the works of the flesh are done, who or what wanted you to do it? You yourself, right? Remember, the flesh lusts against the spirit, but all of this is taking place within you, right? Galatians 5:22. But the fruit of the Spirit, or the fruit of the Ruach, is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, trustworthiness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no Torah. And those who are of Mashiach have impelled the flesh with its passions and the desires. If we live in the Ruach or the Spirit, let us also walk in the Ruach or the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another, envying one another. So now, same question. When the fruit of the Ruach, when the fruit of his Spirit are done, who or what wanted you to do it? You yourself. Right? So at the end of the day, two ways presented before you and the choice is yours. So with this being said, we have to choose which path we will walk. Each individual is made with the free will that they can choose to use however they desire. Adherence to the terms and conditions of the covenant guides the choices we make. So when we obey the covenant, we are walking on one path, whereas when we disobey the terms of the covenant, we are walking on another path. One path leads us to life, and one leads us to death. Deuteronomy Devarim 30:11, for this command which I am commanding you today, it is not too hard for you, nor is it far off. So now, there's nothing wrong with the command, right? Simple and easy. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Okay, how hard can it be? right? But yet and still, how long have mankind been walking around on the face of the earth and messing stuff up? Since the beginning, all the way into this day, right? I mean, I haven't seen people stop dying yet. So it lets us know that there's still a penalty that's being paid for sin. So it's very simple, but something is making it hard. He said, it's not in the heavens to say, who shall ascend to the heavens for us and bring it to us and cause us to hear it so that we do it. It's not that hard. But yet, we still got given Mashiach to walk this out and show us how it can be done. Nor is it beyond the sea to say, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it to us and cause us to hear it so that we do it. For the word is very near you, in your mouth and in your heart, to do it. So now where is it supposed to be? In your heart. But we already saw that the heart is what? It's desperately wicked, right? It's deceitful above all things. Like, who can know it? So what y'all think might be causing some issues when it comes to his Torah? It's not the word, but maybe it's something with the heart. See, I have set before you today life and good and death and evil, and that I am commanding you today to love Yahuwah your Elohim, to walk in his ways and to guard his commands and his laws and his right rulings, and you shall live and increase, and Yahuwah your Elohim shall bless you in the land where you go to possess. And like we saw earlier, all of them ones, they perished in that example of disobedience, right? They did not make it into that land. He says, but if your heart turns away, so now we sin. This is where the problem comes in. It's all within the heart. And you do not obey, and shall be drawn away, and shall bow down to other mighty ones and serve them. So now you got to ask yourself it. So the heart can be in one place, but it can get pulled away, right? That means it can get tugged in different directions. They call that heartstrings and, other spheres. He says, I've declared to you today that you shall certainly perish. You shall not prolong your days in the land which you are passing over the Jordan to enter and possess. I have called the heavens and the earth as witnesses today against you. I have set before you life and death, the blessing and the curse. Therefore, you shall choose life so that you live, both you and your seed, to love Yahuwah your Elohim, to obey his voice, and to cling to him, for he is your life and the length of your days, to dwell in the land which Yahuwah swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give to them. So now this is intriguing because we know that we were created with the free will from the beginning and an ability to choose either good or evil. So with this being said, these two things were meant to remain separated. In the garden, there was the tree of life. This tree was an unmixed tree. The issue comes in with the tree of the knowledge of both good and evil. These two forces existed in one package, if you will, mixed together, and they were not separated like the other opposing forces of creation. Right, so Genesis 2:16. And Yahuwah Elohim commanded the man, saying, eat of every tree of the garden, but do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for in the day that you eat of it, you shall certainly die. So it's something about this mixture that brings forth a death, right? With this being said, we'll see that in order for us to have oneness within self and oneness with Elohim, we will have to resolve the mixture that is within us. So this is done by choosing good or life over evil, which is death. Each of us is given the opportunity to choose when we go through trials. So these prove us to show us where we are, right? And this is like a daily thing. Daily thing. Some days more than others, but that's something that's always present to all of mankind, not just Israel, to all of mankind. We're gonna get into that. So the conscience. What can y'all tell me about the conscience? What is it? Before we get into it, what is it?
I just read it off there. It's your inner voice.
All praises, all praises. The inner voice.
Tell you different stuff too.
All praises.
You gotta decipher.
All praises.
You remember the animation you had with the dude from I can't Kronk, and he had the devil and the angel on his shoulder. That's the conscience right there. That's the conscience.
All praises.
And I think that's real interesting, because if that's that inner voice, then that would be that, not necessarily the Holy Spirit, but your spirit that's within you, that's speaking, that's going to have you make that decision, choose from good and evil.
All praises. Excellent point. Well, we're going to touch on that a little bit, but that's an excellent point. So keep in mind, there's a way that he created all of mankind, right? Like, that just makes us mankind. You got a soul, which is, a nefesh. You got a spirit, which is a ruach. Like, you got a heart. You got all these things that make you. And the goal is that you can have all of those things on one accord with the Father. But there can be breaches in all of those areas, in any of those areas, and that can cause problems within, right? And we're gonna get into it, but that's an excellent point, because you have a spirit in you that wants to be in agreement with the Father's spirit, right? But in the event that that's not in agreement with the Father's spirit, it can also be in agreement with an unclean spirit, right? So just keep all of that in mind. So a conscience, right? A natural moral compass. So the question is, did the Father create us with anything to help assist us in governing our own free will? So remember, I said we got created with this free will, and you can do and make whatever choices you want to make with that free will, right? But his desire is that we choose what? Life, right? So do you think that it's possible that he might have gave us something to help us make that choice? Okay, so we're going to get there. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Right now we're dealing with the conscience, right? So we're going to get there. Absolutely. But we're going to get to why he had to give the ruach. Like, we're going to get to that too. Go ahead.
Actually, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
When you're young, like a child, who nurtures that conscience?
All praises.
I mean, if your mother and father are not, has not been instilled with the Word of God, then your conscience will be hard to develop, because no one is actually nurturing that consciousness. So actually, in the scripture it says, teach your children in the ways that are right, so they will grow up to do things that are right. So a lot of your nurturing of your conscience is going to have to come from an outer source.
All praises. So we're going to touch on that as well. So y'all keep that in mind, what Elder just said, because we're going to see that the conscience has some limitations. Right, like there's some limitations with the conscience, which is why we don't see that the Father then, in his infinite wisdom, gives something else, right? And then that's gonna have some limitations, and then he's gonna give something else, right? Because his desire is that we choose the life, right? So he's like rolling out all of the stops so that we can get in.
No, that's deep, because you ever heard the phrase, he ain't thinking right. She just not thinking right. It just goes back to, what was your foundational upbringing? How were you raised? How were you taught to think? And if you haven't corrected that, it's going to go right into your adulthood. Then you got to go back to, okay, let me go bring it all the way back. How was I taught to think? then that's when you gotta erase things, retrain things, start to develop, new just a new thought process of how to think. Because sometimes we're not always raised with that right conscience.
Absolutely, Sister Kim, or whichever one of them came first.
It just makes me think about the sayings that we've always heard. Let your conscience be your guide. Follow your heart. Like you said, there's limits. You can't do that. You will be taking yourself straight into eternity damnation if you do that. Because a lot of times, because I think it's Einstein that even said, to thine own self be true. So that means you can't just go by your heart. You can't go by your conscience on the surface, because you could be setting yourself up for failure.
Absolutely.
The question, did the Father create us with anything to help assist us in governing our free will? And what I thought was that he created us in his likeness and in his image. So, knowing himself that he is the Almighty and that he, creates and breaks by his word, he gave us kind of that likeness, like we, with free will, we can do, quote unquote, whatever we want, but he's like, no, you're not your own gods, you must serve me. So I think with that likeness and him knowing that we have free will, he had to put his likeness in us so that we can submit, because that free will you can go wild with that.
All praises. Right.
Now, keep in mind, last week he started this study off, and we talked about how little children already know, or it's instilled in them, right from wrong. Now, when you ask them, well, why did you do that? I don't know. They know. Some of them will even start crying when you come to them because they already know that they've done wrong. But there's something that's in them that's making them feel that way. Mm-hmm. So we all know everybody has some type of moral compass. Mm-hmm. Because you're not gonna, the things you know not to do, like you gonna make a decision, either you gonna do it or you're not, but you know it's wrong before you even do it.
Mm-hmm. Now notice, going back to Elder's point, depending on what you taught and what you not taught, that voice can either get damaged, right?
There you go.
A conscience can get messed up, and then now things that, like, we use the term racism, for instance. Mm-hmm. Most children, that's not an instinctive thing for a child that, like, they see other children and they just want to play. Right. That's their natural conscience. When they're getting programmed in, there's going to be some moments in there where it's like, this isn't right. It doesn't feel right. But the more that gets instilled into them, more the less that their conscience is going to scream out at them and say, this is wrong. They just going to fall in line with it, right?
So it's kind of like, even when you receive the Holy Spirit, but as time go on, you're learning things. You're getting stronger. You get more mature within that Holy Spirit as you go on. When you receive the Holy Spirit, you don't know everything all at once. You're building on this thing. Mm-hmm. And I'll land there.
All praises.
I noticed when you have that ruach and you have that spirit on you. I noticed when you have the ruach and the spirit on you, it makes your senses more sensitive, to the people who or the ones who haven't been on that road, on that road of overcoming your conscious and what it's telling you all the time. It can be very sensitive at times, so you got to be very careful, with the thought, because a thought can get in your head so quick, and you got to be mature enough to say, okay, I'm not gonna pay that no attention. So it's almost like a karate guy trying to get his hand, what's it called? Trying to get his hand conditioned for what he's about to face. So that's just like with our conscience and our heart and our spirit. We have to continue. It doesn't stop. The more we do it, the more we get acclimated to it. You know, we get used to it. We'll know what to do next time.
All praises.
So I look at conscious like our internal pause button, or like, you know, in the computer world, CPU, where you processing, you know, your central processing unit in your brain that the Most High gave us naturally. Okay, yeah, don't touch that stove, you're gonna burn yourself. But we still go and touch that stove, find out the hard way. And then as we grow in life and in our journey, we sharpen that consciousness with the Torah. Right? And so whether we utilize that new information or turn the other way and continue to folly, that's when we're going to be held accountable even more, since we know the word of the Most High. So we don't battle against flesh and blood, but against the powers and principalities. So there's an evil ruah. Yeah, we always talk about the set apart ruah, but we're always under attack of these wicked dark ruahs.
All praises.
I think a lot of that's true when you're an adult, but when you're a small child, most of the time you're going to pick up your habits from those that are your parents. So I know when I was growing up, my grandfather was a pastor, right? So I remember sitting in my grandma's lap listening to him speak. So a lot of that the word was being instilled in me, and I was learning of it at a young age, and it kind of stayed with me. It set a, not say a boundary, but it set a basis for me as I grew, because, you know, from listening to my grandfather, I was able to learn and understand what was right and what's wrong. Now, as you get older, you can choose to do things that you think might be right, but that won't make it right. You know, because you're doing these things that your mind is feeding your spirit to do. So if you're not grounded at a young age from your parents' perspective, you know, you can chop down a lot of different roads. You know, so a lot of it is going to be on who's nurturing you as a young child. It's going to really help you develop as you get older. You got some kids that has no nurturing, and they just a wild branch.
Absolutely.
You know? And it's hard to reel them back in once they get older.
Absolutely.
You know, so a lot of it's going to depend on your surroundings and your environment, and who's nurturing you at a young age.
Absolutely. So keep in mind, that's the reason why the Father says what? Teach them in the way that they should go, right? Like Deuteronomy chapter 6, whole thing. Like when you rise up, when you walking about in your day, when you lie down, like don't let this Torah depart from your lip. Teach this to the children and the children's children. Like there's a reason why he wants the Torah to be instilled. But we're gonna get to that.
I like to piggyback off of what he said. It is so very true. And as a teacher, I see this, and the kids, not just from the parents, but it's from what they see in the school and what they hear in the school, and it's amazing. It's just these little kids. You think that they're not listening, or they're not seeing you or paying attention, but they do. They do, and they learn quickly.
All praises. And then mind you, like, I don't know if we're gonna get off into all of that, but just keep in mind, like, you know, your eyes, talks about how your eyes are a lamp of the body, but and like depending on the state of how that eye is seeing, it can determine how the whole inner being, the state of the whole inner being. We brought out earlier, like how the heart, out of the abundance of whatever is in the heart, then the mouth is going to follow. So like you're more in tune with your environment than what you give credit to, than what you think you are.
So we were talking about how the Most High has placed this spirit within you, and within this spirit, He's giving you some moral compass. Elder was just talking about it depends on who's teaching you, and so this spirit having to be nurtured. This is the reason why He's telling you to bind the commandments onto your forehead, onto your hand, on the outpost of the door, in your home. They're supposed to be written on your mind and in your heart. This is what's raising you up in Torah. This is this. So now you can see how this not only is this what we'll call a religion, but this is a culture, a way of life, and it should be automatic. But because of how we've come up in this corrupt world, and we learned this and been brought up, what Elder was just saying, been brought up a certain way. We used to do this, we used to do that, we used to eat this, we used to eat that, we used to worship on this day, we used to keep Christmas and eat. Now, having to walk daily, you have to die daily and shed these things off to come back home. So I'm laying there.
All praises, because we're gonna touch on that here in just a moment. We're gonna touch on that in just a moment. So, second question, we're not gonna answer this one yet, but did the Father give us anything in addition to how we were created to help assist us with governing our free will? Sister Kim already touched on it earlier, so we're not gonna just keep these two questions in mind as we continue. So your conscience is an inner feeling or voice viewed as acting as a guide to the rightness or wrongness of one's behavior. So he had a guilty conscience about his desires, is the example that they give. Right now, Romans 2:12 says this: "For as many as sin without Torah shall also perish without Torah, and as many as sin in the Torah shall be judged by the Torah. For not the hearers of the Torah are righteous in the sight of Elohim, but the doers of the Torah shall be declared right. For when nations who do not have the Torah, by nature do what is in the Torah, although not having the Torah, they are a Torah or a law to themselves, who show the work of the Torah written where? In their hearts. Their what? Conscience also bearing witness." So conscience is something that's common to all mankind, and it's trying to lead everybody, with or without the Torah, to the right thing. But we, like he says as he continues, we're not going to look at that today, but he says, how much is what's the benefit to the Yahudi? Like, we profited much in every way, for we were given the oracles. So we don't have to guess and be led by a limited conscience and hope that the people before us got it right. We know it's right because it came directly from Elohim, right? It says, "Who show the work of the Torah written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and between themselves their thoughts accusing or even excusing. In the day when Elohim shall judge the secrets of men through Yahushua HaMashiach according to my good news." So now notice, like I said, even though it was in the nation, they got something to tell them. That's wrong and that's right. Right? So in Greek, the conscience, suneidesis, is co-perception. That is moral consciousness. It's from G 4894, sunido, to see completely. Used like its primary only in past tenses, respectively, meaning to understand or become aware, and to be conscious or clandestinely informed of, to consider, to know, to be privy, to be aware of. Right? So just keep in mind that something about the conscience is going to be connected to understanding and knowledge. Right? That's how you nurture or develop a conscience. In Hebrew, the Greek equivalent is H4093, Madah. From H3045, intelligence or consciousness, knowledge, science, thought. Right? H3045 is Yada, a primitive root to know. And by knowing, this is like an intimate level of knowing. It's an intimate level of knowledge, right? Properly to ascertain by seeing, used in a great variety of senses, figuratively, literally, euphemistically, and inferentially, including observation, care, and recognition, right? So now, notice how the conscience of a person is developed naturally through their experience and observation. So with this being said, this is the reason why children just somehow seem to know when they've done something wrong, even without having to be told. They somehow just have something checking them and letting them know that what they did was wrong. The thing is, however, that the conscience is also something that can be damaged by what is experienced and observed as well. So this is why you see in the writings that there is a difference between a strong and a good conscience and a weak or a defiled conscience. So in a moment, we'll see how the Torah, the spirit, the Ruach of the Father, works with the conscience to bring harmony to the being.
You signed off again.
Said it again.
Signed off again.
Yeah, I don't know why this thing keeps doing that. We'll sign it back in though. All praises. Let's see. Start. There we go. We should be back in action. All praises. So where were we? Okay, so in a moment we'll see how the Torah, the Spirit, or the Ruach of the Father, how these two work with the conscience to bring harmony to the being. The goal is that when the conscience and the spirit are in unity, the state of the person is in shalom. So when there is something that disrupts this unity, the conscience of the person is alerted to get your attention. The conscience is there to keep you on course with what you believe is right. And this takes place as a natural measure, whether one's belief is founded in a Torah or not, right? So this is how come the people of the nations, they still have a conscience, and it still lets them know right is right and wrong is wrong, right? So it's naturally wired to check you when you deviate and are in a state of disharmony, right? Titus 1:15. Indeed, all matters are clean to the clean, but to those who are defiled and unbelieving, no matter is clean. Both their mind and their conscience are defiled. They profess to know Elohim, but in works they deny him, being abominable and disobedient and unfit for any good work. So now notice here, this refers to one that has both a defiled mind and a defiled conscience. So this refers to one that is dual in their nature. They profess to know Elohim, but because they have a defiled mind and a defiled conscience that doesn't refute their defiled mind, they continue to operate in a disharmonious state with the Father's Ruach without being bothered by their actions or disjointed state. All right, so we will look into this a little bit more later, and the reasons why this happens. But for now, pay attention to how the mind/heart of the person works with their conscience, and is supposed to keep them on one accord with the Father's Ruach. But this isn't always the case. So they can become defiled, and when that occurs, it makes a person unfit for any good work, even though they are aware of the Torah and the will of Elohim. Right, so to sum all that up, the conscience is there to check the mind, right? So is supposed to be there as a check and balance. If the mind goes off, your heart goes off, the conscience is supposed to send you an alarm and let you know, hey, you going off, let's reel this back in. Are you sure you want to do this? This isn't what you believe. That's what the conscience is supposed to do. But if that gets defiled and the mind is defiled, now we got even deeper and even bigger issues, because now the Ruach doesn't have any place, right? And so now every good work is you unfit for every good work, right? even though you know his Torah, right? So the conscience is a very important thing that's supposed to be there to let you know, get your attention. Hey, we going off. So Hebrews 10 and 19, he says, so brothers, having boldness to enter into the set apart place by the blood of Yahushua, by a new and living way which he instituted for us through the veil, that is his flesh, and having a high priest over the house of Elohim, let us draw near with a true heart in completeness of belief, having our hearts sprinkled from a wicked conscience and our bodies washed with clean water. All right, so notice how this is all about bringing you into oneness, right? A clean vessel, a clean conscience, clean stuff in the vessel, right? True heart, completeness of belief, not a divided belief, right? A fragmented belief, a split up belief, but a completeness, a oneness in belief. That's what the goal is. So notice that the only way to have a clean conscience is to live in a state of oneness or harmony with our beliefs. How many times have we been in a place where we did something that went against what we believe and what we know we should have done, and then now you got something weighing? We say that's something weighing on my conscience, right? It's a weight there on my conscience letting me know this don't feel right. Something's off. I shouldn't have done that, right? And no matter how much you want to avoid it and get away from it, it just naturally shows up and naturally pops up, right? Now keep in mind when it pops up, because a lot of times it only, in the midst of you doing the wrong, the conscience is silent, right? It's overpowered by the desire of the heart. So that's why we're gonna see that the conscience is limited in what it can do, because the heart is that messed up, right? And it's gonna need some help. So if you don't live in completeness of belief with the true heart, a good and well operating conscience will alert you and make you aware that you have strayed away from what you believe to be right, right? So just in the event that you step out of bounds, as long as your conscience ain't messed up, it'll let you know you stepped out of bounds. Make this right, right? As a side note question, what happens when a person draws near and their heart is not complete in belief? What happens when we draw near to Elohim and the heart ain't right? You gonna fall faster? Okay. Right? One, either something weighing on they might have something weighing on their conscience, but their conscience is still functioning in a healthy manner, right? So that's gonna hopefully lead you in the direction when you go to most. Let me get it right. If something's weighing on my conscience with my brother, I got to get that right first before I go to him, right? Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Doc.
You may want to approach the Most High. You'll get to that door and stop, because you know if you ain't right, you go through that door, you know you in some trouble. Mm-hmm. So therefore, a man can become unstable. I'm teetering this way, but I know I should be going this way. You will be unstable.
Mm-hmm. All praises. And then we got a situation where it's even worse, right? You can have a defiled or a wicked conscience, and that means if that's the case, and you don't go before him, and the conscience is not telling you, let me stop and go get this right first, that's a bigger issue, right? Because now there's no check and balance telling you and letting you know you've ignored it so much to the point to where you don't even hear it. Now you're at a point where you're going before him thinking everything is okay, and you way out of pocket, right? Like we see an example of that with the Pharisee. He not looking at himself. He I'm grateful that I am not like that tax collector, right? And he walked right on away from there feeling good about himself. His heart deceitful above all things. It lied to him. Told him that he was better than what he was, right? But not knowing that he walked off, and the same debt that he walked in with, he left up out of there with it. If not, he added more to the bill, right? Go ahead, Elder.
So, just to line back on what my brother was saying, when you come to that knowledge that you've done something wrong, or you're doing something wrong, which the Ruach will acknowledge to you should be your next thought process. Actually, like you said, go back to that brother that I done something wrong to and apologize to him. And then you have to come back to the Father and repent. This is why some of us try to express a lot about acknowledging your own self when you're doing something wrong, and having the courage and understanding that I need to go to the Messiah and repent for what I've done. Because if you don't, you're going to be carrying that burden on you a lot longer than you should be carrying it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And now, mind you, something about your heart, it wants to see itself as good. So it's going to figure out a workaround so that it can cope and deal with itself in that state, right? So just keep that in mind.
I'm backing off for Elder over here. If you're fortunate enough to see yourself, if you're fortunate through grace, can really see that, hey, I'm struggling here, you consciously know that you're struggling with something. So that means there's hope. Okay? So that means the Ruach is dealing with that individual. But by the same token, if you don't think that there's nothing wrong with you, then that's another big problem. So, the word talks about it. I've said it several times, in the past. Is people like that who think they're fine, they're in a reprobate state. Because the Most High, after so long, after He's told you and shown you repeatedly, get it right, He's just going to wash His hands of these individuals. It comes to that point. And so it don't matter how you think you're right. You're fooling yourself. And it brings me to 2 Thessalonians 2. And I'll start, it's just a couple of verses at verse 9. So if you want to read the whole verse to get more context, but it says, the coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteousness, deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this reason, Yah will send them strong delusion that they should believe the lie. So you're not going to be able to help yourself. You're not going to even be able to repent. You're not going to be able to consciously say, I got to repent. I got to stop this, because this verse pretty much tells us the Most High has washed His hands of you.
Absolutely. Now we're going to get to that. We're not going to quite get there today, but that is coming up soon. We're going to start touching into that next week. No. It's all praises. Like, I'm just saying, like, we are going to go in that direction. All praises. So 1 Peter 3:8, he says, to sum up, let all of you be like-minded, sympathetic, loving as brothers, tender-hearted, humble-minded, not returning evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, blessing, knowing that you were called to this in order to inherit a blessing. For he who wishes to love life and see good days, let him keep his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. Let him turn away from evil and do good. Let him seek peace and pursue it. So again, we said these two ways presented. He's telling you, if this is what you want, make this choice, right? He says, because the eyes of you who are on the righteous and his ears are open to their prayers, but the face of Yahuwah is against those who do evil. And who is the one doing evil to you if you become imitators of the good? But even if you suffer for righteousness' sake, you are blessed, and do not fear their threats, neither be troubled. But set apart Yahuwah Elohim in your hearts, and always be ready to give answer to everyone asking you a reason concerning this expectation that is in you with meekness and fear, having a good conscience, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, those who falsely accuse your good behavior in Mashiach shall be ashamed. So now notice that the whole goal of all of this, he's saying, hey, if you wish to see the life, if you keep your conscience clean, right? Keep your conscience clean. Because the thing is that if something is off in your conscience, you never gonna get to that state of oneness, because that is the goal of the conscience, to let you know, hey, something's off. It's two things in here. I need you to make a choice and pick which side you're gonna choose. That's what it's designed to do. So the conscience of mankind, however, will prove to not be enough to keep us in alignment with the Father's will and desire. Does that mean that there's something wrong with the conscience? No. It just means that there's something wrong with the heart. The conscience ain't quite strong enough. It's saying the right thing, but the heart just don't listen. Right? So you don't need a little bit something else, a little bit more clear, right, to help you. And that's where we're going to get into the next step, right? So as I mentioned before, we will see why this happens, but for now I want us to see that the Father gave us something in addition to our conscience that we were created with to keep us in alignment with His will. So Genesis 4:6, it says, Yahuwah said to Cain, why are you angry and why is your face falling? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you don't do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is contrary to you. It's against you. But you must rule over it. And this is all within him. And there's something that's in him that's against him. Just think about that. And up to this point, he has a conscience. Right? So notice here, Cain's conscience was not enough for him to correct himself. So since this was the case, the Father himself alerted Cain of his state with an instruction that, if followed, would have brought him back to a state of oneness within. Notice here, it was identified that there were two conflicting natures that were contrary one to the other within Cain.
So looking at Cain, and we already talked about these things being placed within this spirit within you, and things supposed to be written on your heart and your mind. What's interesting is he killed his brother, and he goes and tells the Father, somebody's gonna kill me. How does he know this? Because if you go into the law, you see this is actually written in scripture. It's written in the law. Mm-hmm. This is placed on his mind, in his heart. He's terrified thinking somebody out there is going to kill him.
Mm-hmm. All praises. So now notice the conscience is a natural. It's naturally there, going off, alarming you and letting you know something's off. And you can choose to listen to it or not. All it's there to do is to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable and cause you to bethink yourself. That's all that it's there to do. All that it can do, right? But it's up to you to choose what to do with that information. Cain's response was what? Instead of looking at himself, he got angry at who? His brother. So you see how the heart is that wicked that it can. Now we dealing with all of these other things, and you can feel in the anger that he had towards his brother, whether it be covetousness, jealousy, envyings, like you can, all of these things start to pour out of the heart when the conscience is not stopping it.
Well, what really stood out to me in these verses is that, and you're so true about your mind and your heart that can be divided from you. Now, you had the Most High talking to you. You didn't have your dad talking to you. You had the Most High telling you, do well, and you will be blessed. Mm-hmm. So that lets you know how your heart and your mind can be so hardened that you will not even let the truth of it, dwell in you. Mm-hmm. Because he's talking to the master here. Mm-hmm. You ain't talking to just anybody. Mm-hmm. He's sharing this information with you. So that lets you know that sometimes some people's heart and their mind could be so turned, that they're not even listening to the Master, to the Messiah.
So now, mind you, that is Jeremiah 17 is deceitful above all things, desperately wicked. Who can know it? Like, it's going to look for a way to see itself as right. You have to know that about yourself, that your heart is going to, even at the expense of, it's my brother's fault why my gift wasn't accepted. And now he thinks that he's whatever he thought in his mind, to the point to where he killed him. And then when he killed him, buried him. And then when he was questioned about it, his conscience still was justifying and said, am I my brother's keeper? Right? Until the penalty, like you said, comes to him, and now all of a sudden, now the conscience kicks back in. Now he want to listen. Right?
It's interesting because you just named all of the sins he was committing before he got to the ultimate one. It snowballed.
All praises. All praises. All praises.
There you go. Hold on. Say it again, sis.
There we go. All praises.
When sin is finished producing, it produces death.
All praises. All praises. So now, why was Cain angry? Why was his face falling? Notice that there was something in him that his conscience was alerting him of, and this made him angry, right? His conscience was letting him know. That's why he felt so uncomfortable, why his face is downcast, right? I don't like the way that these events just turned out. His conscience is letting him know this wasn't right. The result and the consequence that you got by not being accepted, something's not right here. Let's get it right. But instead of him looking at himself, he didn't listen to his conscience. And now, here we are. Which is why the Father warned him and said, hey, this is what's going on in you. You got this going on. You better master over it, because if you don't, it's going to take you over. Right? So the remedy was doing what was right. But if the conscience and the mind are defiled, the person responds to the discomfort of doing wrong instead with anger or some other carnal emotion, such as justification, instead of in humility and self-correction. So later we'll see some of the coping mechanisms that the mind goes through to deal with the disharmony the conscience causes when we err. Right? So have you ever felt or thought in a way inconsistent with your core beliefs? I know none of us in here, we ain't never done anything wrong, right? Like, none of us in here. It's just, I'm just saying, have you thought? Have you ever thought? Right? So have you ever thought something that's inconsistent with your core beliefs, right? Intrusive thoughts. How many of us have heard of those? All praises. So these are involuntary and unwanted, right? Let me read the definition first. Intrusive thoughts are unwanted, persistent, and often disturbing thoughts, images, or urges that pop into one's mind without warning. They are common and can be a normal part of the human experience, but they can also be associated with mental health conditions like obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and anxiety disorders. Last half of that, we're not going to go into, not by a long shot today, right? Dealing with the part that's common to all mankind, not the more extreme cases. Involuntary and unwanted. They can cause guilt, shame, distress, right? Which is a aspect of the conscience. If something creeps in that's not in alignment with what we believe we ought to be doing, we better hope that we feel some guilt, shame, or distress, right? They could be graphic, disturbing, or bizarre, more severe in nature. People do not want to act on them. Related to over control, often associated with OCD or OCD related conditions. Examples. I got this straight off of Google, y'all. I ain't come up with these examples. These are some extreme examples right here. And I'm gonna say, let me stop. It's not the time for a sense of humor. Okay, examples. What if I stab my wife? Isha, I love you. I ain't never. Now listen. Now I ain't never thought nothing like that. I done thought a lot of things, but I ain't thought that one. What if I burn my house down? Listen, I worked too hard for what I got. I ain't never thought that. What if I'm I'm not even gonna read that one. Cause they calling these intrusive thoughts, but like I said, the second half of this, we not even gonna go, cause there is a layer of this that is ruakal. It might be, if you get into some of these extremes, it might not just be your heart that's speaking, it might be something speaking to your heart. Right. And we'll just leave that there. Like I said, we're not going there today. Impulsive thoughts, fleeting ideas or urges, causes little to no distress. Reflect behaviors performed without considering consequences. Not inherently harmful, related to under control. Generally do not cause shame, guilt, or anxiety. Often associated with ADHD or impulse control conditions. Examples. Knock that cup off the counter. There we go. That's a little bit. There we go. Whew. Cut off your hair or jump off the couch. That's a little bit more natural than the ones on the other side. But the gist of it is that both can be difficult to control, could interfere with your day-to-day life, right? So now, just keep all of this in mind. Because you're going to see that your conscience is going to be a defense barrier and a defense mechanism against your spirit getting too much in a bad state, right? Getting too messed up to where now you're opened up to other things being able to come in there. Romans 7:7, the spiritual standard and the guide, right? Romans 7:7. What then shall we say? Is the Torah sin? Let it not be. However, I did not know sin except through the Torah. For also the covetousness I knew not, if the Torah had not said, you shall not covet. So remember, we said that the conscience, it has some limitations, right? In the event that the conscience gets programmed in the wrong way, it's gonna stop checking some and start letting some bad stuff come through the doors, right? So now here we giving something else. His laws, his statutes, his commandments, his right rulings, his Torah, right? Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, because, and I meant to say it when we was talking about Cain, but what you just said, the law, statutes, commandments, and those first 10 we associate with the royal law, or what? The moral law. Mm-hmm. And see how he went straight on down the line. But yeah, I see you said that, I was just popping in my mind like, yeah, moral law, this thing should be here and here, so you would already know automatically. And nobody got to tell you not to kill your brother. You know better than that. Mm-hmm. You know to take care of your parents automatically. Mm-hmm.
All praises. So just keep this in mind, that he says what? There was a necessity for the Torah because, hey, if you leave it up to me to try to figure this out, I might not know what covetousness is unless the Torah told me not to. Because the heart is a corrupt thing. It's going to look for a way to do what it wants, right? So we'll come back to Romans 7 at a later point, but for now I want us to see that because of the conscience having its own limitations in governing the human heart, because it is developed by what we observe and come to know and understand intuitively, combined with the heart's own ability to justify itself, the Torah was given to us to instruct us in the ways of righteousness. When we are given the Torah, this now becomes our new standard, and our conscience looks to the Torah as its basis for alerting us when we stray from what we believe in either action or thought, right? So now you see how the conscience is going to work with the Torah to say, okay, what is the Torah saying? Oh, okay, something's wrong here. This is what Torah says, but you doing this. So now the conscience is like, okay, this is when I need to step in, right? All praises. So notice the conscience is not replaced by the Torah. But instead, the conscience now works with and leans on the Torah for how it directs you, right? So now this is a major key and a major point, because there are some that will say we don't need no law because now we got grace. But we're going to see that that's not how this works. You don't get rid of the steps before. It was the problem was you needed more help, not less, right? So it's going to start to, they all going to work together and say, let's try to keep this heart on the straight and narrow, right? So like I said, notice how the conscience is not replaced by the Torah, but instead the conscience now works with the Torah and leans on the Torah for how it directs you. So we'll see at a later point that the Torah also has some limitations, and the conscience and the Torah will work together with the spirit or the Ruach to keep you in alignment with the Father's will and desire. Go ahead.
So in order for your soul and your spirit to be intertwined with the Torah, or for them to be worked together, then I guess you better need to know the Torah then.
Absolutely.
So if you don't know the Torah, then the odds is that you're not gonna do right just by your own self righteousness.
There we go. Like without the Torah, you basically, if you don't know it, the only thing you got is your conscience, and it's gonna do the best it can, but it's gonna come up short a lot of the time.
That's so important.
So I know we're talking about the Torah, but what happens if the sins are not in the Torah?
Well,
Like at the beginning of, I think your message, you started off at 1 Corinthians 6, 9 through 11, because that's in the New Testament. So those are still sins, that aren't listed in the Torah. You know what I'm saying?
so before you go, keep in mind, biblically speaking, we have an understanding of what sin is, right? So like, our foundation and our basis for what sin is like it says in the New Testament in 1 John, right? It says that sin is what? Transgression of the law, right? Now there is a case where you might not know the law, but you still might be operating in sin, but still that sin is based off of, this is what the Father says. Whether you know it or not, it's still wrong. If you kill somebody and he's still gonna say, well, this ain't how I rock, right? But that's what sin is. Now, that's not to say that there aren't things that might not necessarily be expedient for you in that moment. That's a completely different thing, but we don't call that sin. That's just more so it's not expedient for you in that moment, right? Now, there is a such thing as, and that's where it comes in, where it's like, if you know to do good and you don't, to him it is sin. Meaning, like, for instance, we can use the example of the old and the young prophet. For somebody else that wasn't given a specific instruction directly to him, on your way back, don't stop nowhere, right? That's not a general sin for everybody else, but for him, you were given a specific instruction that is expedient for you in this moment. Don't deviate from that. And then the conscience, again, is going to bear witness of all of that along the way, right? Because the conscience is just there to make sure that you are in alignment with what you know you're supposed to be doing. Right? Go ahead, Art.
I was getting ready to say something else, but I dropped that. I'll wait. But yeah, for where there is no law, there is no sin, and that's all I was gonna say. Where there is no law, there is no sin.
Our praises. So, like I said, Torah, your conscience, these two are working together to keep you in alignment. And in the event that the Torah is not enough because of the wickedness of the heart, again, it ain't nothing wrong with the conscience, ain't nothing wrong with the law itself, but as we're gonna see in a little bit, something can be wrong with your heart yet and still, and it is gonna cause you to do something to the Torah, right? What are some things that if your heart is messed up, you might do with the Torah that might now start to justify you and your behaviors?
Add to it or take away from it.
So you might start to add to, you might start to take away, right? You might start to misuse and abuse and twist things in the Torah, right? So you might have the law and know the law, but then you might inappropriately use the law because your heart is corrupted. And then now that's the reason why now the law has its limitations and we need something else on top of that. Go ahead.
So now this is where you start getting into Talmud and Mishnah and what Yeshua was going against and what Paul was going against, and these things being added to Torah. This was the yoke that was upon the people that their fathers could not handle. That was what the yoke was. These things added to the law. That's what that is. So when she just asked the question, well, what if you don't see the sin in the scriptures? This is what the elders were starting to do. Well, scriptures, the law or the scriptures. So if it's not there, this is what they were doing, taking, okay, so if this happens, now we got to add something to it. If this happens because they don't see it in the scripture, we got to add it. We got to add this to it. So this is where you start to get these oral traditions and these oral laws from.
All praises. And then keep in mind that there is, we're going to get into it because there's a purpose why the law came, which is very significant to understanding why it has some limitations. So all praises. Again, let me preface by saying there's not anything wrong with it, but it's something wrong with us, if you will, right? So Galatians 3:19, he says, why then the Torah? So why then the Torah? Why was we given this Torah? Right? It was added because of transgressions until the seed should come to whom the promise was made. And it was ordained through messengers in the hand of a mediator. The mediator, however, is not of one, but Elohim is one. Is the Torah then against the promises of Elohim? Let it not be. For if a Torah had been given that was able to make alive, truly righteousness would have been by Torah. But the scripture has shut up all mankind under sin, that the promise by belief in Yahushua HaMashiach might be given to those who believe. But before belief came, we were being guarded under Torah, having been shut up for the belief being about to be revealed. Therefore the Torah became our trainer unto Mashiach. So it's supposed to lead you to it in order to be declared right by belief. So you can have the Torah, right? And it can tell you right and wrong. But unless you believe it for yourself and it's in your heart, you're going to war with this thing. Which is now why, quote unquote, faith or belief has to be added to this. Right? It's not just enough to know the difference between right and wrong. You really got to believe it. Right? So now we're going to see, like I said, Torah itself has some limitations. And this is where Shaul is going into like, no, I mean, absolutely not. So grace, shall we get rid of? Yah forbid. Right? So that grace might abound? Absolutely not. It's not what the goal of this is. But written law itself, the letter of the law itself, does have some limitations because of where it's written. Right? So again, just as with Romans 7, we will revisit this. So Galatians 3 and Romans 7, it's a lot to unpack in both of those chapters. And people get lost in the sauce in those a lot. Right? We're going to revisit them. But for now, I just want us to see that the Torah was given because of there being a limitation to what our conscience was able to do alone by itself. So though all are created with a conscience, sin still prevailed as the predominant force. Right? Everybody has a conscience, but yet sin's still running rampant. Then we get to Genesis chapter 6 and he like, man, every inclination of their heart is only evil continually. The heart is that messed up. So the conscience is not enough to keep it in check. So now let me give something else. Let me give some laws, some statutes, and some guidelines that if their conscience is in alignment with that, they can double check and tap back in with that, and it can get them back on the right path. But that's still not enough to purify or cleanse the conscience, because you got to take it to the next step and you got to actually believe in what it is that the Torah is saying. So we're gonna continue. Actually, let me go back. By the way, today we are laying some framework for us to start seeing what's going on within us. So what is going on within when we find ourselves dealing with something that is bringing us to a state of disharmony, right? So these are the questions you got to ask yourself, right? When something don't feel right and something don't feel off, or I might feel disconnected from the Father, or I might feel like, man, my prayer's only hitting a certain, they're not getting past the ceiling, or whatever it is that you got going on within you. I really, for whatever reason, I know I should pick up the phone and call my sister, call my brother, but there's something there that's making me not want to do it, right? Like, it's all sorts of things that can happen within where the conscience is alerting you and letting you know, hey, something's off, something's off. And it's going to be up to you to deal with whatever those warnings are.
I was just thinking about what you just said. We can know the Torah like the back of our hands, but it's about if you believe it. Do you believe what you know? And you know how you believe it? By your actions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All praises. So Romans 8:1, he says, there is then now no condemnation to those who are in Mashiach Yahushua, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Ruach or the Spirit. For the Torah, or the law of the Spirit of the life in Mashiach Yahushua, has set me free from the law or the Torah of sin and of death. So now notice, last week we spent all that time talking about these two ways. Here you see them right here. It's two laws that's present in him. Now, is he talking about the law of the Father, or what is he talking about? Right? Like, you're going to have to ask that, like, really go through this and follow which one is the one of life and which one is the one of death. And they're not both talking about the same thing. Right? He says, for the Torah, or the law, being powerless, in that it was weak through the flesh. So now we see that it wasn't nothing wrong with the writing, but it's something that made it messed up because of what? The flesh. Elohim, having sent his own son in the likeness of flesh of sin, and concerning sin, condemned sin in the flesh, so that the righteousness of the Torah should be completed in us, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. So now you see something is now added to the law to help you do the law, in accompaniment with your natural conscience. Now, all of these things are supposed to be working together as checks and balances to let you know, right? So now you got your conscience looking to the law and the Torah, and then you got the Torah looking to the Spirit to be discerned, right? So now you got all of these things working and bearing witness, right? What does the Ruach do? It's supposed to lead you to all. What is the truth? Thy law is what? Okay. So now you see how all of this is all working together to try to bring you into a state of oneness, because the heart is that corrupt.
So in order for all of this to work as one unit in you, you got to submit yourself to the Word and the Spirit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All praises. Verse 5. He says, for those who live according to the flesh set their minds, or their hearts, on the matters of the flesh, but those who live according to the Ruach, or the Spirit, the matters of the Spirit. So now you see, it's all about where you set your mind, all about where your heart is going. If your heart is being led in the direction towards carnal matters, that's where it's going to go. If your heart is being led in the direction of spiritual matters, that's where it's going to go. It's up to you to determine where you sending it. Sister Kim.
To be carnally minded is death. Sin, all of it leads back to death. So there's no getting around it.
All praises. And mind you, that same death was there since the beginning. And that same life was there since the beginning. So just keep that in mind. So he says, for the mind of the flesh is death, but the mind of the spirit is life and peace. Because the mind of the flesh is enmity towards Elohim, for it does not subject itself to the Torah of Elohim. Now we see how this works, right? When your heart or your mind is not subjected to the Torah, and it says it, now you're going to have a problem, right? Neither indeed is it able, and those who are in the flesh are unable to please Elohim. Romans 7:14, for we know that the Torah is spiritual. But what was the problem? He says, but I am fleshly, sold under sin. Well, ain't nothing wrong with the law, but it's something wrong with who the law was given to. And so because of that, now here we are, we done ran into the brick wall where the law is like, hey boss, I went as far as I could go. I need some help. I can't finish this race. We need something. Bring in the more troops. I need somebody to pass the baton to. Right? So, like I said, notice here there was nothing wrong with the Torah in itself, but it has limitations because of where it is written. The goal of the Torah is to govern the heart, but because the heart is deceitful and sick above all things, the Torah written on tablets of stone is not enough to tame it completely. So because of this, we are looking for the Torah to be written directly on the heart through the power of the Ruach. Then at that point, the human heart and conscience, the Torah, and the Spirit of the Father will all become one within us, thereby bringing oneness to self. Right? So we've heard these things. 2 Corinthians 3:1. He says, are we to begin to recommend ourselves again, or do we need, as some, letters of recommendation to you or from you? You are our letter, having been written in our hearts, known and read by all men, making it obvious that you are a letter of Mashiach, served by us, written not with ink, but by the Spirit or the Ruach of the living Elohim, not on tablets of stone, but on fleshly tablets of the heart. So now you're seeing that the Ruach is now guiding you and is trying to write the Torah on your heart. But we still gonna run into an issue, into a limitation, even in this era, because I'm gonna put it this way: the Ruach is poured out with measure, right? It's not poured out without measure; it's poured out with measure. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Yeah, it's beautiful because so I'm reading this the definition for gracious, and it says courteous, kind, and pleasant, right? This is how merciful the Most High is. From the very beginning, you see what happened. We talked about, Cain and Abel and whatnot. They're carrying these things down throughout time. Well, let me go ahead and have them write these things down so that you will always have something to look at and remember. Let me give them some fringes. They don't remember now, they can touch them. Mm-hmm. Let me go ahead and send my son down here and show them how to walk this thing, so they can see it live and live in color. They still ain't getting it. I'm still being merciful to them. Let me go ahead and send my Spirit. That's how merciful he is. Say keep giving you chance after chance after chance after chance, giving you different things to look upon, to remember. To come into oneness with yourself first, then with Mashiach. That's why he said if you believe in Mashiach, you should live your life like Mashiach. Because he is of his Father, he does the same thing that his Father do. This is how you become one. This is how they are one.
Absolutely.
In agreement.
All praises. All praises. Verse 4, it says, "In such trust we have toward Elohim through the Mashiach, not that we are competent in ourselves to reckon any matter as from ourselves." So again, what did he say? Not that we're competent in ourselves to reckon any matter in ourselves. Like our conscience ain't enough. but our competence is from Elohim, who also made us competent as servants of a renewed covenant, not of the letter, but of the Ruach. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. But if the administering of death in letters engraved on stones was esteemed, so that the children of Israel were unable to look steadily at the face of Moses because of the esteem of his face, which was passing away, that's a lot of esteem that the written law gave. There wasn't nothing wrong with it. Don't get that twisted. But how much more esteem shall be the administering of the Ruach not be? For if the administering of condemnation had esteem, the administering of righteousness exceeds much more in esteem. For indeed, what was made esteemed had no esteem in this respect, in view of the esteem that excels. For if that which is passing away was esteemed, much more that which remains in esteem. Right? So, like, again, like I said with the conscience, there's nothing wrong with that, but why would I turn down the Torah just to rely on that? Something that I know is lesser than. That don't make sense. Instead, let me get both of them joints, and hopefully that's going to help me. If that's not enough, why I'm going to turn down his Ruach just to say, Torah only? Like, that don't make sense. And give me the Ruach too. I need all the help I can get.
That's why if you only went off the letter, David would have been killed. You wouldn't be able to see the Most High's mercy only going off the letter of the Torah. There's a spiritual side to it. There's mercy to it.
Absolutely. Weightier matters of the Torah, right? Like, these are weightier matters, right? All praises. Jeremiah 31:31. See, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall make a renewed covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah, not like the covenant I made with their fathers in the day when I strengthened their hand to bring them out of the land of Mizraim, or Egypt, my covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, declares Yahuwah. For this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, declares Yahuwah. I shall put my Torah in their inward parts. Right, so ain't nothing wrong with this law, y'all. It ain't going nowhere. It's just that instead of it being written on stones and leaving it up to you and your heart to say, well, I'm either gonna follow it or I'm not. He gonna take this thing up another level and he gonna put it in your heart, right? Then we can't. Ain't nothing to be said then. It says, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people, and no longer shall they teach each one his neighbor and one his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, declares Yahuwah. For I shall forgive their crookedness and remember their sin no more. Right? So it's a whole process that the Father has in order. Right now, we're under a state where he's pouring out his Ruach, like I said, with measure, right? Because we saw that even though the 12 had the Ruach, what happened? When they lacked belief, it was certain things that they couldn't tap into because of their lack of belief, right? So it's not just like without measure like it will be in those days. But right now we progressing and moving towards that. Go ahead.
Well, what you were just reading about, what did you say? We won't have to tell our neighbor anymore, no longer, and he's going to put it in our hearts. That's when we're in the kingdom. Mm-hmm. That's not right now. Right now, that's our work that we have to do. Mm-hmm. So right now, we trying to get our neighbors to get it. We trying to help our brothers and sisters, help, first ourselves, of course, but, faith without works is dead right now.
All praises. Like I said, we are definitely in an age where the Ruach is being poured out, but it ain't been poured out like this. Like, it ain't at this point. Like, that can't happen until this corruptible body is taken off. Like, we can never attain that in this, right? So, like, yeah, but that's later. That's some later stuff. All right, we ain't there yet. So until this occurs, the Spirit works within those whom it has been given to alongside the conscience and the Torah to bring the heart under subjection to the Father's will. When something is off, these trigger notable warnings within us to alert us that we are straying away from what is right. So to the one that only has the conscience, their conscience alerts them as best as it can, i.e. the nations and us before we received the Torah. Conscience did the best it could. We had some sense of right and wrong, but it wasn't quite adequate. Elder?
Just to line back on what you were stating about when we were in Egypt and how your heart and your spirit can be misled. I mean, if you really think about it, at that particular time period, they seen so many wonders that the Messiah had did. All of the things that he put on Egypt, you know, everything that happened in them, you were eyewitness to this. And then you get down to the Red Sea, and he opens up the Red Sea for you to go through. Even after all of that, you get there when Moses was gone, you know, how your heart and your mind can be so deceived and thinking something that you're doing right was actually doing wrong. Even after you've seen all of these miracles that the Most High did for you. That is crazy. How can you, I mean, that just show you how the mind and the heart can be deceitful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Hardened, right? He said that they had the stiff-necked people, and we had hearts of stone, adamant as a stone, right? Okay, so to the one that has the Torah and their conscience, both work together to alert them as best as they can. So to the one that has the Ruach, the Torah, and a good conscience, all three work together to bring oneness with the Father to the being. So the heart, however, is deceitful and will seek ways to not have to see itself. So all three of these work together to reveal to the heart where there is disharmony or conflict of interest. So Romans 9:1. A quick brief story about a conflict of interest, right? Boy, I'm in a grocery store a couple weeks ago, and I'm all over the city, so I probably run into like loose cash more than the average person, because I'm everywhere, like all the time. I'm like always on the move, and I'm in and out of places all the time. So like I'll be dropping off stuff at people's house, and it'd be like money that be laying in their driveway. Now my rule of thumb is, I'm not gonna take it. I'm gonna knock on your door and let you know, hey, I found this in your driveway. Right? That's the way for me. I can't say that that's the case for everybody. This is one of them things that's personal for me, but I will say that that's my rule of thumb, right? And if I deviate from that, for me, it's gonna weigh on my conscience, right? But a couple weeks ago, I'm in Aldi, and boy, I'm like, it's tight. Like, I'm busted. And I'm like, man, I really ain't even got it to get what I need to get, but I ain't got no choice. I gotta get what I gotta get. I look, and it's $40 in the aisle, sitting down right there in the aisle. I'm gonna tell you how deceitful the heart is. I got pants that got zippers on them, right? I just so happen to that day be wearing like these. These got zippers on them. And if I got zippers on my pockets, like I'm going to zip up the pockets so that my wallet don't be falling out of it. Y'all know good and well that this money is not my money. I'm looking around like, I grab it, I swoop it up real quick. Heart start racing. I said, now hold on, wait a minute. Did I drop this? Now you know good and well. You know good and well you ain't come in here with no cash. You know good and well. But that's how the heart works, right? So then I'm going back and forth. I'm like, well, I mean, his Torah don't say if I find something, like I ain't stealing it. If I find it, I can't use it. But I know what my personal, like I know what the rule is for me. Going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I done parked the cart, walked out to the car. hopped on the phone with the Isha. This is how, and usually this is a no-brainer, but it goes to show you how the wilderness or how the moment of trial can bring something up out of you, right? Now this is the moment where the rubber meets the road and you go, well, what do you believe? I said, man, you know what, I'm tripping. Then I got to thinking about it. This is where I lean on his Torah, right? The conscience is already telling me, but my heart is like, yeah, but, hold on, wait a minute, hear me out. Then I get, and I'm looking at it, and then that's when I count the money, right? It's $40. Now, we know if we looking at Torah, 40 represents what? Trial, testing. I said, you know what, nah. Let me lean on it. 40 years in the wilderness, 40 days up on the mount. It's $40 here. This is a test. The Father's eyes is on me. I better lean on what I believe in. Why am I even sitting here going back and forth? Shut up. Walk in. I'm just turning this money in. Then this is how treacherous it is. I walk up to these people and these clerks, and all my alarms going off saying, you know good and well, you hand this money in, and they're going to look at you like you the dummy, and they're going to put it in their pocket. Right. So now I'm still looking for a way to justify, like, man, I may as well not even. So first I come and I walk up to her, I said, has anybody come to you looking for something? Waiting for her to be like, no, so I could be like, oh, okay, good. Thinking about it, she says, I don't know what you're talking about. I need more details. Like, are you talking about a phone or a what? I said, nah, what it was, I found $40 over there. Man, time's hard. If somebody, I wouldn't want to lose my money and drop my money and then be looking for it all over the store and somebody else done spent it. Man, it's too hard to come across honest living. If somebody come up here asking for this money, please get it to them. Now it's off my conscience. Whatever you choose to do with it, that's your battle. But I know I turned it in. If somebody come looking for it, they can find it. I say all that to say, even knowing all of that, the heart boy still was telling me and trying to give me every which out, every reason. Man, matter of fact, now since I got the extra, I'm not just gonna get what I came in here for. We gonna add more to this list. That's go to show you just how the heart is, right? I'm gonna get some extra stuff that I want. Like, that's all I would have done with it. So that's just how it works, right? You got to stay true. Go ahead.
So at what point do you accept the blessing?
At what point do you accept the blessing was the question.
So there are times where the Father makes it clear to me. But when that happens, that's why I said that this is a personal thing, because there might be some times where you might be walking, and if you are in a space where you asking the Father to provide and then he provides something, then I'm not going to tell you not that that's your prerogative. Like, that's between you and him, and he'll let you know. But I will say that when he gives something, it don't come with repentance. Like, I'm not going to be sitting there, now my conscience is messed up after I done accepted it. Like, no, when he does it, I know it. And so, like, in that case, for me, I know when I go to him, I'm like, nah, I need something more clear than that from you, because anytime that I move like that, it never goes well for me. But there are times where it's like, man, I'm not even looking for this, and it shows up and I know that it's you. Like, you know what I needed and you heard, and I have no conviction. Conscience ain't telling me not to do nothing. None of that. I'm not warring within myself because I know this is from the Father. So, like, that's when I move. Like, she knows I have a saying, like, man, hey, when in doubt, leave it out. Like, for me, that's my rule of thumb. Like, if I'm in doubt about it and I got to keep going back and forth looking for ways to justify, that's the indicator to me that something else is working. It's just my heart, like, trying to make this right. But something is telling me in there, that's why I'm uncomfortable. Something's letting me know, nah, this ain't for you, right? So there are some times where, like I said, it might be for you in your situation where it's like, hey, I found $500 and this was exactly what I've been asking the Father from. Like, hey, Mashiach took the fishing rod, threw it in the lake, and then pulled up a fish that had a coin in his mouth, right? Like, sometimes that's the case if that's what the situation is for you. But for me, in that situation, I knew that wasn't the case. Straight up.
So, honestly speaking, I thought the test for you was at the driveway. because I was thinking maybe the people on the inside was going to see if you were going. They laid the money out there to see what you was going to do about it. That's what I was thinking. But the grocery store situation, it could go either way. But like you said, that was your test because you in your situation, what have you. But I mean, I'm not a person that I've never been one that believed in taking something that didn't belong to me. I don't have that thievery spirit. But me, honestly, sitting here, I would have picked it up like, oh, thank you, y'all.
Yeah, like I said, all praises.
I'm just keeping it real.
Yeah, all praises.
Thank you, y'all. I would not have went to the counter and say, is anybody, now if I heard somebody say, anybody see $40?
Then yeah, that's different.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I'm like,
of course.
here, I found it. Here, sis. But if I'm just keeping it real.
Yeah. Again, specifically, like I said, that's not something I'm not. If y'all see some money and y'all, hey, that's between you and the Father. I can't say which way you're supposed to go in it. I just know in that situation for me, what my rule of thumb is. Like my point of sharing it is just showing. Like the heart is it'll to the point to where I know I ain't dropped this money, and I'm asking myself, did I drop this money? Like that ain't come from the Most High. Ain't tell me that. Like He know I walked in there without it. Go ahead.
And then we got to remember, we live in a whole nother era now. We got cameras everywhere, and you got people with cell phones just watching you pick it up. They just waiting to watch you pick it up, and they gonna film it. So they just waiting. They just waiting on you to make a mistake, not just in here. People around you are watching. Angels, are watching.
To land back on what he just said about being watched, it reminded me of I've seen something on social media. They have these little traps set for people. Like they had this one I just saw this past week. A little moped was sitting, and it was even an old man that went and took it. It was just like, are you serious? You an old thief?
About to hurt herself.
And and they had it set where after so long, I think it looked like one of them. When you get in an accident and it pops, the bag pops. Well, that's what it did on the seat. After so long, they got him on the seat. And I was just thinking, that's why I said that about you with the money in the driveway, because I'm like, maybe the people was trying to check, check your integrity, I don't know for why, but, and I'm like, they could have been sitting in the house like, let's see what he gonna do, if he gonna take this money and then report you.
Y'all willing, I don't find out. I always turn it in, just for that reason. I always turn it in.
What she just said is exactly what I was sitting there thinking when he was talking. I'm thinking like somebody probably could have just dropped it on the floor and watching you the whole time just to see what you getting ready to do with it. But your heart was hoping that the Most High just sent it down like a leaf, just floating down. You know what I'm saying? Like.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like earlier it was brought up about what if it's not in the Torah, and like what you did. Some people say that ain't in the Torah, but I say it'd be in James, right, 4:17. Therefore, to him that knoweth to do good and doeth not, to him it is sin. So like the elder said earlier, I was raised in a lifestyle where it was a tradition or a culture to do wrong. And that's how those generational curses are passed down, because there's no correction, or someone doesn't want to go against their father. Hey, this ain't right, or to your family or your neighborhood you're being raised in, and it's like, why we have zeal for something that's unlawful instead of having zeal for the word, and actually becoming and that for me, when the whole diet thing, a little bit of the dietary law, it started kind of like that. as far as the wisdom, it brought sorrow to me because some of those unclean foods, I liked it. You know, I'm like, oh, I can't eat that no more. You know what I mean? But it was for the better. You know.
All praises. Absolutely.
Just to land back on what my brother was saying, I mean, actually, I remember going to the Christian churches, and people would come up there and ask you to pray for me for my high blood pressure and things of that nature, right? But soon as they get home, they eating a ham sandwich, So y'all got to be looking at you. Come on, man. How can you ask me to help you, but then you gonna turn around and eat this food that right, it's not good for you. So it's like, you're trying to find a gray area to do things that you think is right, but it can be detrimental to you.
All praises. So Romans 9:1. I think I read this, but I don't know. He says, "I speak the truth from Mashiach. I do not lie. My conscience also bearing me witness in the set apart spirit." So now you see what the conscience working with the ruach, right? That I have great sadness and continual grief in my heart. So notice here we see the conscience working with the spirit to reveal what's in the heart. Hebrews chapter 9 and verse 8. It says, "A set apart spirit, signifying this, that the way into the most set apart place was not yet made manifest while the first tent has a standard, which was a parable for the present time, in which both gifts and slaughters are offered, which are unable to perfect the one serving as to his what? To his conscience." He's offering these things according to the Torah, to the letter of the Torah, but they are not to the what? Able to perfect that individual's conscience. It's there to help as good as it can, but you got to actually have the belief in it, and then that's where your conscience now starts to get even more developed, right? Otherwise, you're just gonna be warring back and forth between what you want to do and what you know not to do. It says, "Only as to foods and drinks and different washings and fleshly regulations imposed until a time of setting matters straight. But Mashiach, having become a high priest of the coming good matters through the greater and more perfect tent, not made with hands, that is, not of this creation, enter into the most set apart place once for all, not with the blood of goats and calves, but with his own blood, having obtained everlasting redemption. For if the blood of bulls and goats and the ashes of a heifer, sprinkling the defiled, sets apart for the cleansing of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of Mashiach, who through the everlasting spirit offered himself unblemished to Elohim, cleanse your conscience from dead works to serve the living Elohim." So notice the Ruach is supposed to be doing what? Cleansing your conscience. And because of this, he is the mediator of a renewed covenant, so that death having taken place for redemption of the transgressions under the first covenant, those who are called might receive the promise of the everlasting inheritance. So notice here, this is what was being referred to in Hebrews. The conscience and the written law had its limitations, which is why Mashiach showed an example through the Ruach. Remember, he had the Ruach without measure. And remember, the Ruach was poured out as a helper for now by measure on those who receive it, as a helper until the day comes when we receive it without measure and are completely made new through the renewed covenant. Then we will be given a new body that operates a little bit differently than this current one we have now. For now, the conscience, the Torah, and the Ruach alert the body when things are not right. So this is where we get a quote-unquote gut feeling, right? And we feel shame or guilt when there's a disharmony with our beliefs, right? So we getting into the home stretch, and I don't want to have y'all here forever, so I'm gonna start putting my foot on the gas a little bit, and I'm gonna start moving fast. But if I need to slow down, y'all slow me down, all right? So Romans 3:21, it says, "But now, apart from the Torah, a righteousness of Elohim has been revealed, So we got the Torah, but now apart from the Torah, a righteousness has been revealed, being witnessed by the Torah and the prophets. It's the same. They all working together. And the righteousness of Elohim is through belief in Yahushua HaMashiach to all and on all who do what? Believe. So now you see that you got to add some belief and some faith to this thing in order for you to get to the next level in it, right? He says, for there is no difference, for all have sinned and fall short of the esteem of Elohim, being declared right without paying by his favor through the redemption which is in Mashiach Yahusha, whom Elohim set forth as an atonement through belief in his blood, to demonstrate his righteousness, because in his tolerance Elohim had passed over the sins that had taken place before, to demonstrate at the present time his righteousness, that he is righteous and declares righteous the one who has belief in Yahusha. So notice he letting you know the whole time the Father's mercy, like Ak was saying, has been there the whole time, where he's been overlooking a whole lot so that he can get to the point to where he's able to pour out the Ruach and actually make a change on the what? On the conscience. So now, we got a question. And where's Ak Brian? All praises. I got a question. Has anybody heard of cognitive dissonance? What's cognitive dissonance? If y'all want to stay silent, it's cool. It's on the board. It's up there. It's cool. We can move on. And all praises. So, in the field of psychology, cognitive dissonance is described as a mental phenomenon in which people unknowingly hold fundamentally conflicting cognitions. So, to put that in layman's terms, cognitive dissonance is something that you feel when you know to do something that you're supposed to do and you don't do it. You got two conflicting things warring for position in you. That feeling that you get, that unease, that guilt, that shame, that something's not right, that like that in between, like when you looking on both shoulders and you listening, like nobody likes to be in that place. That's called cognitive dissonance. That state where you like looking like, okay, well, let me get this ear. Maybe I'll do this. It's an uneasy place because you're unsure of yourself, right? Being confronted by situations that challenge this dissonance may ultimately result in some change in their cognitions or actions to cause greater alignment between them so as to reduce this dissonance. So the dissonance is the feeling, right? When you got two different opposing thoughts in your mind at the same time, right? What they said is key though. Because the heart naturally wants to feel shalom. The heart naturally wants to see itself as good. So it's naturally going to start to go through some processes to resolve that dissonance. And that's where we can either run into the Most High or we can run into some problems that the flesh can bring up, right? Notice they said you got two choices here. You're either going to change the way you think or you're going to change the way you behave, right? A change in your behavior is saying, hey, this is what I believe. Why am I being swayed, like Elijah said, between these two different opinions? Let me pick the one. Let me get my behavior in alignment with what I believe. I'm saying I believe this. Well, let me do it. Stop weighing and swaying between us having a double mind, right? But then you got the other side of it, which is just change the way you think about it. Well, when you put it like this, when you look at it like this, no, you know that's not right. But now you're just going to look at it from a different angle to make it fit within your worldview. You don't change your behavior and get your behavior in alignment with what you think, or change the way you look at it so that you can keep your behavior the same way. Appreciate it, Michael.
So your actions is going to reflect what your heart and your mind determines, one way or the other.
All praises. All praises. So it says relevant items of cognition include people's actions, feelings, ideas, beliefs, values, and things in the environment. Cognitive dissonance exists without signs but surfaces through psychological stress when persons participate in an action that goes against one or more of conflicting things. According to this theory, when an action or idea is psychologically inconsistent with the other, people automatically try to resolve the conflict, usually by reframing aside to make the combination congruent. Discomfort is triggered by beliefs clashing with new information or by having to conceptually resolve a matter that involves conflicting sides, whereby the individual tries to find a way to reconcile contradictions to reduce their discomfort. Right? So that's cognitive dissonance. And so from that, you got some coping mechanisms and some defense mechanisms that kick in so that you don't have to feel the cognitive dissonance. But the cognitive dissonance is caused because your conscience is telling you something's not right. Right? So now you got to ask the question, what causes this to occur within you? Right? When you feel yourself in that space and you're like, what do I do? But there's something in you that's letting you know what you should do, what you ought to be doing, and the answer is there. It's not so far off. It's there. But something, your heart, is making it hard to make the decision and hard to make the choice. So now this is that war, that battle between the flesh and the spirit. Ah, there he is. Hey, Ak. All praises. Man, hey, you right on time. Right on time. So before you do that, I'm gonna go to the next slide and I'm gonna read the next slide before you go there. I want to read this first though. It says Leon Festinger proposed that human beings strive for internal psychological consistency to function mentally in the real world. So it's a natural function of you to want to have shalom and oneness within yourself. Everybody wants it, but we don't always want to do the right thing. Right? So the mind goes through a whole process of things to try to make it fit, even if it might not quite fit. Right?
Is it sort of like burying your head in the sand?
So that's a response to cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
So we're gonna get that's more next week. So we're gonna get into some of these defense mechanisms and some of these coping mechanisms, some of these things that we do when we feel cognitive dissonance. Today we're gonna end just on what cognitive dissonance is, and then next week we're gonna look at, well, what are some of the ways that we try to resolve this cognitive dissonance, whether righteously or unrighteously, right? And it's a whole plethora of ways and a whole plethora of things that we do to try to resolve that. So it says, persons who experience internal inconsistency tend to become psychologically uncomfortable and are motivated to reduce the cognitive dissonance. They tend to make changes to justify the stressful behavior, either by adding new parts to the cognition or their thought process, causing the psychological dissonance, which is rationalization, believing that people get what they deserve, i.e. a just world fallacy. Taking in specific pieces of information while rejecting or ignoring others, which is selective perception. Like we said, we might start to twist the Torah and had to take away and only take the parts that we want to fit within our narrative, right? There he is. All praises. Or by avoiding circumstances, head in the sand, and contradictory information likely to increase the magnitude of the cognitive dissonance. Confirmation bias. Festinger explains avoiding cognitive dissonance as tell him you disagree and he turns away. Show him facts or figures and he questions your sources. Appeal to logic and he fails to see your point. Right? So cognitive dissonance. This is what this is. I asked the question, well, what is a dissonance? So a lack of harmony among musical notes. On you, Ak. Toda. That's harmony, right? All them notes sound right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Like it feels right. We all know that. Even if we can't play the instruments. We all know that, right? We know harmony, and it feels right. Hey, Ak, hit us with some dissonance. Y'all feel how that's like uneasy. A little bit, it's not quite right? Not quite right. Like, y'all ever heard a cat on the keyboard? Like the Aristocats movie, like when a cat just is like on the piano and it's just like hitting anything. Y'all, you can feel that in your body, right? Music makes you feel a certain way when it's right. But when it's wrong, you like, man, what is this noise? It's messing my vibe up. Like, it's messing with me. That's disharmony. That's dissonance. Right? Hey, Akko T, say less. I ain't trying to offend nobody, because it might be somebody that's out there like, yeah, like that's they thing. Might be their thing. All I can say is my drum beats to a different rhythm. All praises. A tension or a clash resulting from the combination of two disharmonious or unsuitable elements. Can you play a couple chords just that's not right? I know that's hard because you always in key. Like, I know it's hard because you always... Okay, give me a 2-5-1. That's about as harmonious as it's gonna get, right? You got a 2-5-1, it feels good, right? The 2 leads you into the 5. The 5 leads you into the 1, right? Throw something that don't belong in that 2-5-1 in there. I was about to say, nah. It's some harmony with that. Like, it's some harmony with that. You still playing with some harmony. You still playing with some harmony. Don't think about it. There we go. All praises. It gotta be a random fry. Like, he's programmed to be in harmony. All praises. That's a good musician. But
like he did on the 5 heartbeats when he was off.
What he just did though is telling, because when you learn and your being learns how to be in harmony, it grows difficult to be out of harmony. Right?
And it
should feel uneasy.
It was. Conviction.
Right? Every part of his being is telling him, even though I'm saying play something out of key, he's still somehow playing something that's in harmony with one another, right? He can't help it. Right? All praises. All praises. That's the way it's supposed to be when we get in harmony, right? That's called resonance, right? When we're right. Dissonance, however, is when we off. And instantly, if he playing a gig, he hits something wrong, or if somebody hits the wrong note when he's singing, something's off, he instantly is gonna feel it. Something's off. So our thinking is off, right? The cognitive dissonance is there to let us know something's not in harmony. You playing some keys out of key, right? Well, wait a minute. The Most High says this. You said you believe this. You know in your heart that this is what's right. So why are you doing this? Why are you thinking this? Right? Then that's when you get that dissonance.
And when you playing in the orchestra, the conductor, he can hear this. He senses that. He gonna look at you like this, just like the Messiah. You got a harmony. I can feel it. I can see it. So I'm gonna try to correct you. So, and if you keep playing out of harmony, you might find yourself outside the orchestra. You know, because we got certain rules and regulations that we're trying to make all work as one. Right? So if you're going against the grain, you know, just like the orchestra, yeah, you can be kicked out.
All praises. Excellent point, Elder. Excellent point.
So I was, what's the scripture about the tinkling, sounding brass, tinkling cymbal, or something like that? Clank. It's like clanking. It's like noise to him. When
excellent point.
Yeah. So when our thinking is off, like I said, it's like we got to change that stinking thinking, basically, and we don't want to sound like a noise to him. We don't want to send up we want to have a sweet aroma in his nostrils, our offering to him. So otherwise he don't want to hear all that noise with our disobedience and stubbornness and rebellion, because he said rebellion is as sin as witchcraft. So there's that.
All praises. Excellent point. Notice that it's something that's in our heart that's going on, that's causing the music that we're playing to sound crazy to him, right? It's just noise. I don't want to hear that. That's not in tune with me, right? All praises. So it's a tension or a clash resulting from the combination of two disharmonious or unstable or unsuitable elements, right? The war always between the flesh and the spirit is like never ending. They're always going to be at enmity with one another because they have to be. They are polar opposites, right? Dead Sea Scrolls 1QS 4 and 15. When we saw this last week, the nature of all the children of men is ruled by these two spirits, and during their life all the hosts of men have a portion of their divisions and walk in both their ways, and the whole reward of their deeds shall be for everlasting ages, according to whether each man's portion in their two divisions is great or small. For Elohim has established the spirits in equal measure until the final age, and has set everlasting hatred between their divisions. Truth abhors the works of injustice, and injustice hates the ways of truth. So if you're somebody that operates in truth and has agreed to truth, that the truth is right and just, but you do something unjust, here comes the dissonance. Something's not right here, because these two can't live in the same place, right? So emotional symptoms of cognitive dissonance: stress, restlessness, guilt, embarrassment, anxiety, frustration. Now, that's not to say that these are always caused by cognitive dissonance, but a lot of times they can be, right? Behavioral symptoms of cognitive dissonance: avoidance, neglect, procrastination, justification, denial, impulsivity, right? And that's if. Excellent point.
If you have a conscience.
Excellent point. If your conscience is in agreement with something that is wrong, you have a defiled conscience, and it's not going to alert you. You're not going to feel the discomfort. Like, the discomfort only comes when you know to do right and you don't. Right? Or it might come, some people have a cognitive dissonance when they have a tendency to do wrong, and then they're challenged and they like, man, I should do the right thing. Like, that's really warped, but it's still a dissonance, right? Like, if they're used to doing wrong and they make it their business to do wrong, and then they finally like, I had to do right.
You know, last night we was actually on a study about being blissfully ignorant, right? And these very same emotional symptoms was in the the definition of being blissfully ignorant. People who don't want to know the truth, and then when you present them with the truth, it causes a confliction within them. You know, and the same thing with and then the same. We was going over this last night. The same things that you put up there, it's the very same things that we was talking about last night. That when we was going through the definition of being blissfully ignorant.
All praises again. That's the head in the sand. Like that's. So again, that's one of the things that we do to deal with the cognitive dissonance, because nobody wants to feel this, right? Like, this is not a place where we want to be. And so naturally, your heart is looking for a way to bring itself back to shalom by any means necessary, either by turning the conscience down or changing the behaviors to get in alignment with what they believe in. Cognitive dissonance, Romans 7:12. He says, so that the Torah truly is set apart, and the command set apart, and righteous and good. Again, there wasn't nothing wrong with this law. He says, therefore, has that which is good become deaf to me? Let it not be. Let it not be. But the sin, that sin might be manifest, was working deaf in me through what is good, so that sin through the command might become an exceedingly great sinner. Sin through the command? Maybe I'm doing something to this Torah that I ought not be doing. Looking for ways to justify and using a Torah to justify something that is not used in this context. This is not what it's talking about. But now I'm looking for ways within the Torah to do something that I know the Father is, no, my Ruach, I'm not in agreement with that. Right, this is in Luke when Mashiach gave the story of the Good Samaritan, right? And now this is someone who was a teacher, wise in Torah. He understood Torah. He said, well, what's the two great commands? And the man answered, and he answered well. He knew what the answer was, but his heart just couldn't let it go. He said, but who is my brother? Right? His answer was, love Elohim, all your mind, heart, being. Love your brother like you love yourself. But his heart, looking to justify and make himself right, he followed that by saying what? But who is my brother? Why is he asking that? Because he's looking for a way to mistreat somebody else. That's an abuse of the Torah. But he's looking to twist the Torah so that he can get an out to do something that is unrighteous, right? So now this is how you can look and use the Torah to now use that to sin, right? Mashiach gave the parable of the Good Samaritan, and then he asked, which one was more of a brother to him? Right? This isn't about how we feel. Torah is not about our emotions. It's about what's right and about what's wrong. Anything added to that is just a self-justification. But the heart is what? There we go. It's going to look for a way to do it if you allow it. Right? So he says, for we know that the Torah is spiritual, but I am fleshly, sold under sin. For what I work, I know not. For what I wish, that I do not practice. But what I hate, that I do. That sounds like a state of dissonance. Right? Man, what I want to do, I'm not doing. And then what I don't want to do, I'm doing. I got two opposing forces. I'm not in a state of oneness. I'm in a state of a duality, a double mind. Right? He says, but if I do what I do not wish, I agree with the Torah that it is good. Now, mind you, what we saw in Galatians, that these two are set against one another so that you do not do what you want to do. Right? It's supposed to be a check and balance to keep you in step with the Father. Hey, hold on, wait a minute. Don't do that. I know it might feel good, but sin always is good for a season. Don't do that. Of course it's going to feel good right now, but what about later?
there may not be a later.
Absolutely. All praises. What does he say? He says, and now it is no longer I that work it, but the sin dwelling in me. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwells no what? No good. Right? For to wish is present within me. I have a desire. Hey, my heart is willing, but the flesh is what? It's weak. But to work the good, I do not find. For the good that I wish to do, I do not do. But the evil that I do not wish to do, this I practice. And if I do that which I do not wish, it is no longer I who work it, but the sin dwelling in me. What did the Father tell Cain? Boy, you better rule over it, or it's going to rule over you. I find therefore this law, that when I wish to do the good, that the evil is present within me. For I delight in the Torah of Elohim according to the inward man, but I see another law, another Torah in my members, battling against the Torah of my mind or my heart, and bringing me into captivity to the law or the Torah of sin which is in my members. Wretched man that I am, I'm all messed up. I'm in this state of cognitive dissonance. Do that make sense? The stuff I know I want to do, and I'm saying in my mind that's what I want to do, but then I'm struggling with doing that, and then the stuff I'm saying, man, nah, I don't rock with that, but then I'm doing it. Wretched man that I am, look at my state. What's the remedy? Who shall deliver me from this body of death? So we getting right here we crossing the finish line. Again, keep this in mind. This is cognitive dissonance. We're gonna start to look at ways to deal with this, because that question has to be answered, and you got to get that answer for yourself. Because otherwise, now stronghold might pop up in there, something else might pop up in there to resolve this cognitive dissonance, and it might not be the Father, right? So cognitive dissonance. My man sweating, ain't he? Boy, vexed. Cognitive dissonance. Look into new information and possibly accept that we have been making poor decisions. Well, if I hit that button, that means I'm acknowledging I'm off. I got to hold myself accountable. I mean, yeah, that's a choice. Or I can ignore the new information in favor of our bad habits. Choice is yours. All up to you, right? A belief, right? This is an example that they give in a lot of psychology books. This is a belief. It says smoking cigarettes is unhealthy. Person believes that. I think we can all agree to that, right? Like, it's they warn you. Yeah, they warn you. This is what my core belief is, right? But here's a cognitive dissonance. An unpleasant tension state. Awareness that belief and action are inconsistent. My action, I smoke cigarettes. Right? So every time I smoke a cigarette, I'm going to feel uneasy, because in the back of my mind, I know this is bad for my health. I know I shouldn't be doing this. And now here comes all of the other reasons, the justifications, right? To make it fit. Man, last time, right? Next week. Cut it down. I'm gonna minimize. Well, this brand right here, see, because then that was another thing, like, you know, like, hey, well, if I take the black and then I take that filter out, right? Like, it's let me freak it, and then that make it better, right? Like, we come with all of these things to rationalize, right? It ain't as unhealthy, because really it's the filter that's unhealthy. They got the chemicals in it, right? Like, we go through all of these things to justify it so that that state of discomfort is a little bit less, right? Here's the solution. You got two choices. Again, you can change your actions. The belief is smoking cigarettes is unhealthy. I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. So now you're in a state of oneness, right? There's no more guilt, no more shame, no more battle or war within yourself because you made the decision that is consistent with your belief, right? Or you can change your belief. The research on smoking is not conclusive. You know, well, some of them studies say that it's unhealthy, but then I seen some other studies that said that it actually prolong your life, right? So, oh no, the big tobacco, when they was, those studies are out there and funded by the tobacco industry itself. Oh, those studies are out there. No, that's not hypothetical. No. It's just, and they do that. They run that play. It's a propaganda play as a sidebar that they run on everything. Like sugar, for instance. Like now you gonna say sugar ain't as bad. No, it's not the sugar that's bad for you. It's really something else, right? Then it was, fat. Like, oh, it's not. Well, maybe we should question and say, well, maybe it's not fat. Like you need your body kind of needs that. Like maybe it's the type of fat that y'all trying to sell me. Like it's all kinds of things that they will do. Like they fund all kinds of studies to justify something that ain't right? So was it a hand? Okay. So notice here, cognitive dissonance is described as the unpleasant feeling we feel when we operate in a way that is not consistent to what we believe. Hebrews 10:38, but the righteous shall live by belief. They don't live by their faith. But if anyone draws back, my being has no pleasure in him. But we are not of those who draw back to destruction, but of belief to the preservation of life. This is where we have to decide how we will deal with the unease of dissonance, right? So when you feel that feeling, you got to decide, so what am I going to do? Am I either going to stand on what I believe and stand on business, or am I going to move the goalpost a little bit to make this fit within my actions and my behavior? When this happens, we either change our behavior by accepting that our behavior is contrary to our beliefs, or we change our beliefs to fit our behaviors through justifications. So because of the nature of the heart and its natural tendency to hide from itself, some choose to change their belief rather than themselves. One is an inward approach and one is outward, right? So if you look inwardly, then you won't find an answer. It's me that's the problem. I need to change. This is what's right. Let me get in alignment with that. But if the problem is outside of you and it's somebody else or something else, good luck, because odds are you're going to look for a way to justify what you are already doing, right? You decide which one you will choose.
So with that being said, one has to have a constant remembrance of that. There's only one thing that you can take with you after you pass away, and that's your works. That's the only thing that you get to take with you once you die. Mm-hmm. So you better your works need to be in line with the Messiah, because if it's not, it's going to be a rough time for you. Mm-hmm. So your works is going to reflect your faith, and your faith is going to reflect your works.
Absolutely. All praises. All praises. So next week, we will continue in this study and look at some of the ways that we deal with cognitive dissonance when it occurs within us. For now, remember, Matthew 26:40, and he came to the taught ones and found them asleep and said to Kepha, so were you not able to watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray lest you enter into trial. The spirit indeed is eager, but the flesh is weak. All right, so keep that in mind as we go into the next week. We're going to start looking at how do we resolve cognitive dissonance, some healthy ways, some unhealthy ways, right? Choice is going to be up to you, but the goal is that we can try to bring oneness to ourselves, like the title of the lesson. And that oneness within ourselves is not just oneness with ourselves if we attach to the covenant of the Father, right? Like we want that oneness within us to be in alignment with Him. Because we can have oneness with ourselves and be way out of alignment with Him. Like, it's up to you how you gonna choose to resolve the dissonance. One thing I can say is that nobody wants to stay in that state of dissonance. So your heart gonna find a way out of it. It's just which way you gonna choose. So yeah, that's it for today. I wanna also say I ain't preaching at y'all with this one. Like I said, it's some stuff that come out of my personal vault. I know cognitive dissonance if I don't know nothing else, right? Like, so I'm again sharing it because I know it. Like, this is something that's common to all of us, right? So the goal is, though, that we can bring ourselves into oneness with the Most High, get in alignment with Him. That's the goal. Praises.
I just wanted to bring this out surrounding the cognitive dissonance. This is James 4:1, and then I'm gonna jump down and read 7 and 8 also. From whence comes wars and fightings among you? Come they not hence even of your lust that war in your members? Which is everything that we've covered today. And then jumping down to 7, in response to, like, he asked the question, and I believe here's the answer. Submit yourselves, therefore, to Elohim. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw nigh unto Elohim, and he will draw nigh unto you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Is that not what you just explained? That's what cognitive dissonance is, that being double-minded.
Absolutely. All praises. Well, y'all gonna see that again next week as well. So you getting ahead of it. But all praises, like, no, it's meant to be said. All praises, like, that is where we're going in a nutshell. Like, you got two choices. You got these two paths set before you. You choose. I got you. Yeah, I realized it afterwards. Yeah, I got you. So yeah, Hebrews 4:11. Let us therefore do our utmost to enter into that rest, lest anyone follow after the same example of disobedience. For the word of Elohim is living and working and sharper than any two-edged sword, cutting through even to the dividing of being and spirit, and of joints and marrow, and able to judge the thoughts and the intentions of the heart. Again, y'all see how relative this is to this lesson. That's what this is all about. And there is no creature hidden from His sight, but all are naked and laid bare before the eyes of Him with whom is our account. So He's giving us an opportunity right now before we enter into that judgment, to judge ourselves. Hey, let's get it right. Let's look in. He's given us all these things to help us stay in alignment. Let's actually fully utilize them. You got a mic? All praises.
He does say, as he just said, judge ourselves so we will not be judged. So we got to hold ourselves accountable. We got to be to thine own self be true. You can't, if you lie to yourself, you deceive yourself, I mean, you know, how are you going to accept truth? How are you going to hear the truth or receive it? Or you can't, because you're lying to yourself. So we got to hold ourselves accountable, people.
All praises.
I don't know if this should wait till next week or not. It's related to conscience, though. Okay, so this is the opening statement. Sometimes others will cause us to fight against the warning and conscience that will get us back on track. That feeling goes away if so-and-so agrees with you. Should that be next week or this week? Because I wanted to elaborate, but I don't know if I should wait for that.
We definitely gonna go into that. Like I said, next week is gonna be us looking at, well, how do we resolve cognitive dissonance? And so there's all sorts of things that are like baked in that we do, whether it's we might compartmentalize, we might start to go through self-justification. We might, like, there are all sorts of things that we do to resolve the dissonance. But I mean, you can share it. It ain't gonna hurt. If we gonna go there anyway, we gonna go there anyways. It ain't gonna hurt.
Right now, you're saying?
It's up to you. Choice is yours.
What?
It's an inside joke.
It is.
That I probably shouldn't have shared, but all praises. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I guess it's something we can think about. So I was just saying that, so basically, is the advice that you get of the Torah and the scriptures, the advice you get, it is important to know if it's of the Torah and the scriptures. If your conscience is struggling and damaged, which you may or may not know it is not good to listen to other people who will support you in your wrong or will help you think you are right when you know you're not. So obviously, if you desire to do wrong, I'm sure you can get people to agree with you, those who also do wrong. But if you are looking for, or if you are working on you and you know you are struggling with this or that, be honest with yourself. Do you have good and righteous company around you? If you
praises.
call or message so-and-so, will this person give you the righteous view, or will he or she tell you you're not wrong when you are, according to the Father? So will he or she tell, or will he or she tell you, remember what the Father said? And then it just goes to, this is why we always have to go with what the Father says. And if so-and-so gives you wise advice that doesn't go against the Father, all praises. But if keep that person in mind. But if the advice is bad, full of bitterness and anger and frustration, don't heed to it. Remember, your flesh will want to go along with the wrong, so you have to fight against it. So it just goes along with, like, who are you talking to? Who are you in company with? Sometimes you could be thinking, oh, this is not right. Call up so-and-so. Girl, you good. Or you good, Ak? Or you good, Akoti? Then it's, oh, I guess I am good then. And then that's it. Then you never be able to get to correct that step because you have the wrong people in your ear. So that's all I wanted to say.
All praises. All praises.
That need to be spoken next week too.
All praises. We're going to come back around to that. All praises.
Lemming backing off of Cody and having an accountable partner, basically. Those ones that want to basically co-sign for your behavior, you got to look at what their behavior is too. So if y'all in the same boat, how I look at that, misery loves company. Because if you're not, if you're not excelling in your walk with Christ, and they're, and they see that you're in the same level as them, and they don't want to see you, excel in your walk. Because it's like I said, misery loves company, and if y'all in the same boat, going to the same eternal damnation, they want to encourage that bad behavior. They don't have your best interest at heart. That's not a true friend. Run.
All praises. So yeah, we definitely gonna get into all praises.
So basically, this was something that we were sharing earlier this morning about love, right? There's different types of love. There's love that can be compassionate, and then there's tough love. And sometimes you have to use tough love when you're dealing with some individuals. You might hurt their feelings, but in the long run, you're gonna be telling them the truth that will benefit them later on in life. That don't mean if I tell you this, that don't mean I don't love you. I do, but I got to tell you the truth. You're wrong. That was wrong, and you need to repent, and you need to go back and apologize to the person that you hurt. That don't mean I don't love you. I'm telling you that because I do love you. Yes,
absolutely.
You got to be able to distinguish between the two.
Absolutely.
It's like even in Israel, we still might carry over that cognitive dissonance like that we had in Christianity. Like you hear it in Christianity a lot, right? Like, oh, he knows my heart. I hear that now in Israel. Oh, he knows my Ruach told me. My spirit told me, are you sure? Like, we got to always check ourselves.
All praises. We definitely we're gonna touch on that, because as we saw today, it's a lot of things that's within us trying to pull us in one direction or the other, and it's a misidentification of one thing for another. You listen to the wrong voice. So yeah, all praises. So yeah, with that, that's all I got for today. All praises.
Hallelujah. That was a awesome message, lesson, conversation, the input that was given today, the participation. Most definitely. Oh, thank you. We battle. And me over here trying to play the piano, and this is how we should be. We should be walking a righteous life, so to the point that when we go to do something wrong, man, you should start sweating. It should be such a internal battle. Like, man, I know I shouldn't be. Because if you're walking in harmony with the Most High, and now you're about to go astray, you're going to feel that. It's going to be a battle, it's a struggle. So I thank y'all for just that examples. I'm like, you know what? If the adversary is trying to get me to do wrong, I should struggle. Like I said, he up there sweating. I was literally up there sweating, trying to figure out how to play how not to play something off. So once again, just like the question we had last week, far as examining ourselves and examining our weakness, when we're trying to become one, we're trying to know you instead of trying to know everybody else and trying to know what's going on in everybody else's households, but know where your strengths and where your weakness lies. There was so many things said today, even the last part, far as making sure that you get wise counsel. Because sometimes those darts you might get, and before I pass out, let me call for help. So before my flesh rises up, let me call somebody to get wise counsel. And you don't call someone that's going to say, oh yeah, you're right. You justified. But it's like, I'm like, yeah, I just deleted everything and I feel better. All praises. Total Ak, and just keep it going. So make sure we always get wise counsel. Don't go to the person that is already in that. You already know they in that same boat. Sometimes spirits attract. So yeah, I'm going to go to the person I'm going to hear what I want to hear. And so that's why I'm glad that I didn't go to nobody in the world. And hey, so I'm going to, oh brother, this is what you need to do. It's like go to the brothers. So once again, the battle that we go through daily, it's a war. If you believe in the Ruach, then guess what? There's going to be a evil Ruach. It's how the world thinks. They like, some people are like, well, I believe in angels, but you don't believe in demons. And I'm like, these are internal battles that we fight. As he was teaching, and I was just thinking how the Most High, one time where I was traveling, this is probably about 18 years ago, traveling back and forth to Cincinnati to play, and there was one day I didn't have no gas in my car. It had no money in my account, and I didn't know how I was going to get I was stuck in Middletown. I pulled off. I said, I'm not going to make it up here. And I went to a gas station, put my card in, knowing I had no money in it. And of course, insufficient funds, and I'm panicking. I go across the street, do the same thing. I don't know what I'm thinking. Insufficient funds. Father, I need blah, blah, blah. I go back to the original gas station, put my card in, and there was $20 left from, I was like, okay, Father. But how the Father will, I'm like, they left $20. I was, and I'm like, thank you, Father. It wasn't like the Father knew I was in stress. I wasn't gonna go and say, hey, who left their $20 in here? But the Father knew where I was at that moment. I'm like, Father, and for me to go back to the same ATM that has told me no, which honestly just gave me a whole nother revelation that I've been going through the past 4 years, getting a no, and then all of a sudden get a yes. And I'm like, okay, Father, it's always about your timing. Once again, it's good to see John, Tracy. See, I had it right. Okay. Glad to see you all today. Glad to have sis back. It's been, 3 weeks? But always when you're in the house, it's always a blessing. All you that's here, our praises, thank you all for, just come to fellowship. This is how we get strength. Those that's watching online, may the Most High bless you, keep you, and to all of us, and may He keep us all in perfect peace. We've been in a battle. When we leave out here, the war begins again. And so let's keep our minds girded. Let's be prepared as we wait for the return of the Father. I'm going to hand it back to, and downstairs we have a meal prepared. I don't put Ayan on the spot. I mean, I know she brought a guest, but I'm just gonna wave hello. But I'm gonna hands back to Ak as he closes out.
Boy, knees been over here screaming. Too tired for this. Praises. Minds and hearts clear. All praises. Father, we give you thanks, honor, and esteem this day, this Shabbat day, for bringing us together so that we can learn how to be in harmony with you. Be on one accord with you. Give you thanks, Father, for your word, for all the things that you've given us to help us stay in alignment. Giving us a conscience, giving us your Torah, giving us Mashiach, giving us the set-apart spirit. All these things you've given us so that we can be Echad, be one with you. Pray, Father, as we continue through the week, cause us to be mindful, cognizant of our cognitive dissonance. Equip us with what we need so that we make the right decision and yield to the right influence when we feel that dissonance. Changing our behavior is required. Equip us with what we need to make that change. We know that your word is very near to us. And though our spirits be willing, sometimes our flesh is weak. We ask, Father, that you would again strengthen us, the spirit in us, so that the flesh instead is weak to doing sin. Right? We want to be empowered and emboldened in your Ruach to do your righteousness. We give you all thanks, honor, and esteem. And the name of Mashiach Yahushua, the one who came and showed us how to resolve the dissonance, how to be in this state of oneness. Show us, Father, how to suffer and how to understand that suffering for righteousness' sake, that's something that's pleasing to you. That's acceptable. We know when we suffer for righteousness' sake, striving to do the right thing because it's the right thing, is how we bring ourselves into oneness. I just ask, Father, that you would continue to protect us, provide for us, lead us and guide us in your truth and your righteousness as we go throughout this week, and prayerfully we meet again next week. In the name of Mashiach Yahushua, we say, let it be so. Hallelujah to you, Yahweh.